So welcome everyone to this panel, Build Back Better, by focusing on the S, social, in society. And today we have a wonderful panel. I am your moderator. I will introduce myself and give a bit of background before moving to the discussion. So I have more than a decade of experience in impact investing with a large asset manager in impact investment, with a focus on financial inclusion and climate finance. And in my experience, doing more than 120 due diligence on the field, I've met with many people in poor and rural communities. And if you belong to those communities in emerging countries, you have no or you have less access to a bank account. You have no or less access to crops, to fertilizers, to healthcare, to quality education, to formal employment, and all that, particularly if you are a woman, you are less likely to achieve economic and political empowerment. So all that is even more true in times of COVID, in times of climate change, where these communities are disproportionately affected. So of course, it's a tragedy. There is tragedy in poverty, but it also creates economic opportunities and basic products and services to low-income population that also create opportunities. And that's really the basis of my own experience in Asia, in microfinance, in climate finance, in healthcare and education. Today, I'm the senior advisor for the GIN, the Global Impact Investing Network, which is a global champion of impact investing. And we are dedicated to increase the scale and effectiveness of impact investment around the world. So today, please join me to welcome this wonderful panelist for this session, starting with Mrs. Shalini Matani, who is the founder of the Zubin Foundation and community business. We also have Mr. Stefan Fang, who is the Global Director for Sustainability and Creating Shared Value, and Mr. Tom Tsao, the co-founder of Gobi Partner. So I would like to ask our distinguished speaker to introduce themselves and their organization. And Shalini, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you, Mo, and good morning to everyone in Asia. My name is Shalini Matani, and I am the CEO and founder of the Zubin Foundation, a charity and think tank that works to improve the lives of Hong Kong's marginalized ethnic minority community. We do that by providing opportunity to this community and by finding ways of reducing their suffering. A little bit about me. I am fourth generation Hong Kong. Hong Kong is my home. So I was raised here. As Maud has already said, I am a little bit of a serial NGO founder. I set up community business that works with companies around corporate responsibility and diversity and inclusion. I'm also one of the founders of the Women's Foundation. I sit on the boards of a number of charities, and I am on the Children's Commission of the government. On the Children's Commission, I'm also a convener of one of their working groups. I am convener of children with specific needs in Hong Kong, which means I have oversight of children with special needs in Hong Kong, as well as children who are non-Chinese speakers. I come from the private sector, and I moved to the NGO sector because I saw the light. And I'll stop over there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shalini. Stefan, would you like to introduce yourself and your organization?
Thank you, Maud. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stefan Pang, and I'm the Sustainability Director for Diversity, as well as the Creating Shared Value Director for Diversity. And Diversity is a provider of cleaning and hygiene products serving customers in the hospitality, healthcare, food and beverage, restaurants, retail, and facility management sectors. I know it's a mouthful, but basically any building that needs cleaning and sanitation and hygiene, we will be there to with specialty products. The work that I do in Diversity has a social bent to it, as in that we work with our customers, such as hotels and restaurants, to implement programs that meet the customers' sustainable development goals, or SDGs. For example, SDG 1, which is no poverty, right? So we run joint programs with our customers that help local communities build sustainable livelihood programs. And that's what we mean by creating shared value, because the value is created jointly with us, with our customer, and we make life better for the people, the underserved communities where we live and work. We currently have such programs with customers in 188 cities around the world across 44 countries. And I lead all these programs, and it centers on livelihood programs, child protection programs, anti-human trafficking programs, as well as environmental protection programs.
Wonderful, thank you, Stefan. And we see already two different approaches. Tom?
Yeah, hi. Good morning. Hi, Maud, and to my fellow participants. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. Also want to thank the South China Morning Post. My name is Tom Tao. I'm one of the co-founders of Gobi Partners. We are a venture firm that is traditionally focused on tech investments, and we're about to celebrate our 20th anniversary next year. We've grown our footprint now to 13 locations across Asia. We have built out a portfolio in traditional VC investments of almost 300 startups now. We have assets of about 1.2 billion under management. And, you know, I'm so delighted to be here because we are transforming as well. We need to join this fight against, you know, what's going on in the world, climate change, these social issues. We've signed on to become a participant to the United Nations Global Compact. We're focusing a lot on supporting women founders, and we have to play a role in leveling this inequality gap, this gap of opportunity. We see it all the time. You know, we feel like, you know, Gobi, our mantra was to bring opportunity and access to financing for the world's best entrepreneurs, regardless of what market you're operating in. And we feel like that mission, right, providing access to opportunity is even more important now than ever before. And Maud, I think the work that you've been doing, fantastic. You know, I think all VCs and PE firms, you know, we have to do more.
Fantastic. Thank you, Thomas. And look, it's already set the scene for a very exciting discussion, right, with very different approaches that we will discuss later on. So maybe let me start by actually asking this first question. Today, we face significant challenges. You have all mentioned some of them. Obviously, climate crisis, exacerbated by the COVID crisis. And we see it exacerbate social issues and contribute to a deepening of inequalities. So I'd like to know what are the challenges and groups that your organization are tackling as a priority, and maybe starting with Shalini.
Yeah, thanks, Maud. So a couple of my panelists have mentioned this word opportunity, and I think it's really the crux of the work that we do at the Zubin Foundation is providing opportunity. So let me kind of set some context within my very short time frame I have. So the ethnic minority community of Hong Kong is only 4% of Hong Kong's total population. And often we think of Hong Kong as an international city. Well, if you look at the data, it's actually not that international. So when you look at this 4% and you take out the Caucasians and the mixed race individuals, you end up with a community that is actually quite poor. 1 in 4 live in poverty, and it is this population that we work with. And the real problem that we have seen even before COVID is this population were what we call the working poor. So they were working, but they were unable to meet the very minimum standard that we hope most people would meet in Hong Kong. Now, post-COVID or during COVID, there has been large unemployment and large unemployment in the sectors that this population largely works in. So I'm talking about construction, I'm talking about catering, and I'm talking about everything related to the airport. Now, as a result of this unemployment made in these 3 massive industries, we have seen a corresponding reduction in standard of living, right? So all of a sudden, jobs are gone. People who are already poor are more poor. And then you've got COVID, which means that everyone's stuck in very small apartments in Hong Kong. As you know, we have a terrible housing problem in Hong Kong. So then you've got surge in domestic violence, you've got increase in mental health issues, even at the most basic level. At the very beginning of COVID, access to education, access to networks of people, access to social and emotional support, all of that disappeared. So what this has meant for this group that was already quite isolated is they've become even more isolated. So poverty has increased, and the issues that come with poverty have increased. And I'll just end by saying one thing. In all my years in the nonprofit world, I have never seen hunger like I've seen hunger in the last year. In one of our services is a helpline for women and girls in crisis. And all our services are in Hindi, Urdu, and in English. And during April, May last year, we received the first calls ever from women wanting to borrow $40 Hong Kong. That's $5 US. And why did they want this money? Because they did not have money to buy food. And these weren't just one or two calls. We received tens of calls from families just wanting to borrow a little bit of money to put food on the table for that evening. And that shows you kind of the extent of the problem.
Thank you, Shalini. And 2021, right? And we are still discussing issues of poverty in large cities. Stefan, what is your experience and groups you are particularly focusing on?
Yeah, it's similar to Shalini. I mean, as mentioned in my introduction, we focus on programs that help local communities earn a sustainable living. Now, the COVID situation, communities under lockdown, especially last year, a lot of it. Not all lockdowns are created equal. The poor, the underprivileged, the underserved, bottom of the pyramid, they suffer the most. We help a lot of people in these areas. For example, I'll take a Bali situation, right? Bali has a largest rubbish dump there called Suwong, the Suwong rubbish dump. When the borders close, the hotels are closed because no tourists coming in, the amount of trash that is generated by tourists also declined drastically. And these people depend on trash from hotels that is sent to the rubbish dump so that they can, collect the trash and recycle and make a living. And because there's no trash and they are under lockdown, they can't make a living at all. And these communities need sanitation, need protection from the virus, and above all, they need livelihood. More so now than ever. So that's what my team and I, Diversity, has been focusing on. We try to do what we can, ranging from products donations. As you know, we make sanitizers, we make disinfectants, we give products to hospitals and communities in need. Now, sometime in April last year, we decided that, that there was this, we saw an article in one of the local publications that says that the poor have to decide between buying food or buying masks. They can't have both. So we immediately got into action. We decided that we can implement a program that helped these communities. So we launched our Linens for Life face mask program. We reached out to our hotel customers and they willingly gave us tons of bed sheets, pillowcases, duvet covers, literally tons. The last number I saw was about 127 tons or something. And then we taught local communities to sew and how to convert these linens into dual ply face mask. And then we got our donors to purchase these face masks so that the people who do the sewing can make a living. So the donors will purchase the face mask and then distribute for free to the communities in need during the lockdown. And the income from the face masks was shared by the communities, and many people got face masks. And when I say many, the last numbers I saw was about close to 1.3 million face masks that were made. And so these were the programs that we run as a company. And I get my global teams around the world to help me to do this.
Thank you, Stefan. So situation of the working poor, situation of women, situation of ethnic minorities, and you have described it with also your own perspective, which comes from charities and donation. Let's move to Tom, who said as an introduction that his company was shifting. So Tom, could you tell us where you currently focus from your VC perspective?
Yeah, so we're approaching, I think, this crisis from a slightly different angle. And again, I love the great work that Shalini and Stefan are doing. What we're trying to do is actually really get capital and coaching to these underrepresented or underserved entrepreneurial groups. And so two of them that we really focus on are Shalini's talked about women. And so in VC, as you know, if you look at the statistics, the amount of venture capital that's gone to fund female entrepreneurs has been minuscule. And so at Gobi, what we've been doing, and we've been tracking this now, is 33% of our founders are women. And by funding women entrepreneurs, they can bring a lot of impact to the communities and to the problems that they're seeing, like Shalini is talking about. The other, I think, great news is within the Gobi portfolio, 51% now of our founders and C-level executives, 51%, it's the first time in our history, is now women. And we think by bringing, more diverse, opinions, perspectives, voices to the table, this can help the crisis we're all in right now. So I think that's one. Gobi's focus now on really supporting female entrepreneurs. We were one of the first funds to sign on to the $1 billion pledge. And we committed, this was a couple of years ago, 50 million US just to fund female-led startups. So I think that's one. The second one, I think Shalini and Stefan have also talked about, is really in the past, when you look at it, great things going on in Silicon Valley, but Silicon Valley is one of the greatest wealth creation machines that's literally kept many groups of people outside of its networks. And so, when I was operating in China, Chinese entrepreneurs couldn't get funded. That changed. Then it was Indian entrepreneurs, and that changed because they were successful and made gazillions of dollars for Wall Street and Silicon Valley. There are now other groups of entrepreneurs that are going to do great things, but because of bias, they're not getting funded. And one of those we see is what we call the Taqwa Tech opportunity. That's focusing on Muslim entrepreneurs who, if you were to play the word association game in the US or the West, when you say Muslim, the first word that comes to people's mind may not necessarily be entrepreneur. And so we've built out this investment framework called Taqwa Tech, which is really to empower entrepreneurs focusing on this larger, what I call the global Muslim economy. So again, they don't have to be Muslim. They could be entrepreneurs focusing on Muslim startups, the community. And I've got some examples I can share later.
Sure, that would be wonderful. So we see already that we have different approaches, right? And actually, I'd like to dig down a bit further with you on why, in particular, you have chosen approaches which range today from philanthropy, grants, donation, support to deprived communities, to a more, let's say, entrepreneurial approach, just as described by Tom, which includes actually support to entrepreneurship. So, and today, we see that there are blended finance approaches, there are a combination of catalytical capital, of commercial capital, of even technical assistance, as Tom described. So what is the approach that you have chosen and why? And maybe starting with Stefan.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a company, Diversity, we don't have much cash to give, to be honest, and we are also not in the financial sector, but we give a lot in kind. So because as I mentioned, we make sanitizers, we make disinfectants and so on, which are a very important things that are needed in the pandemic. And during in last year, we were ramping up all our production 24/7 because at the initial stages of the pandemic, the world was running low on hand sanitizers and so on. So our products, environmentally friendly, effective cleaning and sanitation products, we gave a lot to hospitals, to schools, and also we run our livelihood programs, as I mentioned just now, for the underserved communities. So these are the approaches that we took. And again, to be sure, although we are a global company, we are not a very big company. And I mentioned just now about the Linens for Life face mask program. We have other programs. Another one that we have, we call Soap for Hope. Again, the formula is the same. We take used soaps from hotels. After the guests have checked out, the soap slivers are left in the hotels, and usually they are discarded. We collect this, and we have a method to convert these used soaps into new soap bars. And we teach the local communities how to do it. We provide the machines and the sanitation protocols for free. And the soaps are then, again, we find donors to purchase these soaps in bulk so that the people who make the soaps get a way to make a living. And the donors would then distribute these soaps in bulk to the communities that lack access to soaps. So this way, the people who make the soaps get to make a living, and the larger communities get free sanitation. I would like to say free healthcare, but obviously, giving soap is just not healthcare, it's free sanitation. So we also have other programs that one program that we call coffee breaks, where we take used coffee grounds. After we drink a cup of coffee, there's about 14 grams of ground coffee that we throw away. We take that and then we convert that into coffee charcoals. And again, we teach people how to make this so that they have a way to make a living. And the coffee charcoal are then distributed to communities who need to cook without electricity, without gas, as a replacement fuel. They don't have to go out and chop firewood. They don't have to buy charcoal. So all of these programs that we run have a similar theme. We take the waste from hotels or restaurants, we convert it into a livelihood program. Some people get to make a living, and then the end products get to use to help the larger community. So that's what we do.
Thank you, Stefan. Very exciting approach, right? Combining donation, but also some sort of circular economy already, right? Tom, what are your thoughts to this question?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Maud, and again, something we've been wrestling with. Obviously in the venture world, it's so competitive, and everybody has to generate returns. But we really believe that somewhere along the spectrum, from pure impact at the far end to pure just maximize returns, don't care about how companies are doing it. We believe we got to move along that spectrum towards more impact, where you can create, I think, the next generation of sustainable companies that are not only doing great things for the planet, but are also creating a very tangible value proposition. So we've been wrestling over the last, and this journey has started years ago. We've been wrestling, as everybody reads the headlines. It's pretty scary. I mean, we've got to play our part. People with capital, we have the power to influence. Right, so that the work that Stefan Shalini are doing can continue. It's got to be baked in. So this whole approach to ESG, the UN's SDGs, Gobi, together with the help of our ESG committee, we're baking that in to just how we do everything within the firm, from how we do conduct due diligence, how we do post-investment monitoring, to even when they go exit. I just think everything now, ESG is baked into the process, and we really believe that we've got to. I can't speak on behalf of anyone else, but at least for within Gobi, it's just something we have to do, and we have to set an example for a lot of the portfolio companies, and we all take a small step. I think it leads to better outcome for everybody.
Thank you, Thomas. Exciting, this journey to explore what happens between pure investing and donation. Shalini, you are a veteran in this space, so what are your thoughts and approach?
No, I started my career as an accountant, and then I became a banker before I went into before I set up my first NGO working on CSR. And it's really improved. So, the fact that ESG is built in to a greater extent today than it was even 5 years ago is great. However, I think we have a very long way to go. And by that, I mean, I'd like to see a time where impact investors are able to monetize impact in the community, I suppose, to a higher standard. And then because they're able to monetize that better, they're less focused on the financial return that they get from that investment. Because what I think is missing, and what charities like mine have to rely on, is we have to rely on grants and fundraising. And so I'll just spend a minute or so talking about that. So charities generally, and I'm talking about my experience only here, raise funds to do the work they do in one of two ways: by grant writing and through fundraising. And grant writing is generally for restricted funding. So you're applying for example, I would apply for funding to a funder to fund my mental health center for children, right? So I'm applying for a very specific reason, and the funder will only fund certain expenses related to that project. So it's restricted. We as an organization rely very much on grant writing. And so I would say for us, it's about 85% of our total revenue, income generation is from grant writing. The fundraising comes from the more creative means. Some NGOs have gala dinners, some go to their high potential donors and just ask, other people do marathons. We traditionally, as an organization, we have relied on one dinner a year, which we haven't done we didn't do last year, and we're not going to do this year. And so every organization is different, but the beauty of the fundraising over the grant is it gives you access to unrestricted funding. Now, unrestricted funding is critical because often funders say, and I'm going to use the analogy of baking a cake, they'll say, we would like you to bake a cake and we'll pay for the flour and the sugar and the baking powder and the butter, but we don't want to pay for the oven. Well, yes. Without the oven, you can't bake a cake. And actually, without the chef, you can't bake a cake. So all that other funding needs to come from somewhere else. And that's the beauty of unrestricted. And for us as an organization, we have grown 40%, 30% over COVID because the need in the community has grown. And we have had to rely on past unrestricted funding, which was saved, to go out and feed the poor, as an example, or to immediately provide mental health support to ethnic minority children. So the unrestricted and the restricted are important to consider.
Actually, Shalini, you offer a great introduction to my next question, right? Which is what is really missing in this ecosystem to help your organization, and you have already partially answered. And because time is flying, I'd like to ask Stefan and Tom if they have thought on this question.
Well, I don't know the answer to this question. What is the missing ecosystem to help us? But I will speak from the viewpoint and perspective of communities whom we serve. They seem to be the forgotten ones. We see governments doling out business recovery funds for businesses impacted, such as the F&B, or supplementing wages for companies. And rightly so. I'm not saying that these are wrong. But those in the informal economy, the trash picker, the trishaw rider, the street food hawker, the worker who cleans cemeteries, those who are living in the margins, like the refugees, these communities seem to have been forgotten. They are humans too. They have families to feed. Under lockdown, cannot find work. So we help these people, and I think if this is the missing ecosystem in the country, and as many groups or people as we can try to help them, I think we should be able to make not all, but at least help some of the 250 million people who live in slums in Southeast Asia alone. That's where I'm coming from.
Tom?
I think Maud, again, one of the key things is you need the capital to be able to do all this good work, right? And I think, governments, whether they're pension funds, college endowments, you hear a lot of people talking about, wow, COVID's a wake-up call for humanity. We've got to change the relationship with the planet. We got to solve these inequality issues. But it's interesting, the people who can unlock these vast amount of capital, and it's all taxpayer money, they're so risk averse. They're so far, I got to follow an index. I got to be benchmarked against my competitors so I can get my bonus. And there's nothing wrong with that. But unless people realize and you unlock that capital and you make ESG a metric, right, that you're benchmarking against, there's just so much capital. Everybody's been talking. So my point is, we can talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk, right? The allocations to these just you got to start allocating. And my sincere hope is, again, the work that's being done by Shalini, Stefan, is just, governments or these institutional funds, they've just got to allocate part of it. And nobody says they got to lose money, right? Because there's still sort of this stigma attached to, if you do impact, sustainability, you can't make returns. I disagree with that. I think, you're going to make more returns by focusing on ESG. And I think that's what's changing in our industry. And so for me, it's just, I think, again, they're taking the right steps, right? Maud, you said it yourself, Shilin. It's just the whole focus. I think people are becoming more aware. And as this becomes, that's why this conference is so great. As this gets baked into the daily conversation, this becomes viewed as very important. I think more people will focus on this and make it a priority, and this will lead to real change.
Absolutely. Look, it was a great conclusion because I think we are running out of time. More allocation of capital to what matters for humans, to what matters for the planet. More monetization of the output. That was also Shalini's introductory word, and more recognition of communities, as Stefan said. Thank you all. I think it was a great discussion, and I was really proud to be your moderator today.